How much should you be investing in your business? That is the question that we're going to be answering tonight. So go ahead, tune in, give us your questions. We got a few topics we're going to be covering around this idea. But if you have an idea or a thought, maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're thinking about getting into business, let us know what you think of this question. How much should you be investing in your business? We're going to talk a little bit about going all in versus playing it safe. We're going to talk about your business as an investment vehicle and what that means, what that can mean for you as the business matures. And we're going to talk about debt versus equity raising. When you're actually raising capital to invest in your business, which one should you do? How do you kind of determine that? And Ryan and I are excited to go deep on it. Ryan, what made you kind of want to talk about this topic tonight?
Well, I think it's an important one because it kind of circulates around what we do very often. I think especially in kind of the coming months, we see a lot of this starting to happen. I mean, it's a new year. A lot of people are talking about capital raising and talking about getting money allocated to stuff. So it's something that everybody, once the tax returns are filed and once everything starts to kind of come clear of what the goals are, you start trying to figure out how we're going to hit those goals. And a lot of time it's, trying to figure out how to use the business itself to maybe stay, I'll stay inside, stay in the pocket essentially of the business. Or as we talk to a lot of people of, getting debt isn't always bad if you do it well. And if you have the business for it, then it's a good thing. So we're in the start of the year. I think that's when people are thinking the most about expansion, trying to get things moving so that by the time the next quarter comes around, they're already into the thick of what they want to do. So it's on the top of everybody's mind, especially, within our circle as well. A lot of people talking about it.
Yeah, I think this is something that people have different opinions about too. And I think that's part of the reason that I was excited to talk about it is there's not one clear answer here. And so Ryan and I are going to throw some opinions out there. We're going to throw some thought experiments out there, but I don't necessarily think there's a perfect answer here. That's why it's something you should spend a lot of time thinking about and finding the right answer for yourself. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about is that this is the big one. Should you go all in versus should you play it safe a little bit? I think it really depends on what kind of position in life you're in.
But I also think it depends on what all in means. I think to some people that is going the Grant Cardone, if you have no money in your bank account, you invest it all, then your back's against the wall and you have to go through and make it work. That's one version of all in. Or all in is you leave your job and you do your business, and that's, your side hustle and all that. But I think the definition of all in. So which one are we referencing here, Brody?
When I think about investing in your business, I think more about the first one that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just got off a call with a guy earlier today who he has a business doing exceptionally well now, doing millions and millions of dollars. I think he's going to finish this year around 10 million. And it's been in the matter of a couple of years, he's grown to that size. It's a fantastic business model. He's set it up very well, very clear, concise, easy offer, great set of sales people on his team. And now he's licensing this business model out in a really creative, fun way. And that's what we were talking about. And part of his story is that before he found this success, he was in a position where he was over $100,000 in credit card debt and had $800 in one of his bank accounts. And so his back was completely against the wall. And in that moment, he kind of found this business model and ended up going all in on it. And, he's credit cards maxed out, so leveraged, like in this seemingly hopeless position, but he had no choice but he ended up taking some of that $800 and he just turned on some ads and he made it work, and he started selling and he sold himself out of the hole. And so his back was against the wall. He invested the last of his money into this, and he's been able to make it very successful. And you hear all these stories about that. I think it comes down to who you are as a person. What's your risk tolerance? Are you willing to let yourself get to that place? Can you stomach that? Also, like, what's your familial situation? Like, do you have kids to think about? If you don't, then you can take some much bigger risks, bigger swings, in my opinion. Myself, I don't have kids right now. Ryan doesn't have kids right now. I think we take a little bit bigger swings than maybe we would if we had kids, or maybe not. Some people have kids and they say, you know what? I need to make something work for this. I need to build a family here. I have no choice but to take big swings and go all in. I think all in can be in the effort you put into it too. I think if you're investing your time, that's another form of investment. that's sweat equity. So if you're investing all your time in it and you're burning the bridge for any other forms of income, you're not working any part-time or full-time jobs, you're investing a lot into that business in that way too. But I really think it depends. Some people have a different opinion. They have a lower risk tolerance, or maybe they have different considerations in their life. They've got maybe some debt already that they're not comfortable going all in and leaving on the table. And they maybe want to just invest a little bit in this business on the side and let it kind of grow some legs, start walking, start crawling before they go all in. And I don't know that there's a right answer. Let us know what you think in the audience, but in the comments, by the way, like, should you go all in on your investing in your business, or should you be playing it safe?
I think the safety route is kind of appealing though for a lot of business owners, especially when you're getting a tiny bit of success, because it means that you're playing the pocket. You're not spending any more than you're making. You're allocating some of your funds into that. So you're never really feeling the burn. And I think it depends, like you said, on the long-term goals of it, where if you are if you don't want to scale at a level that you feel you can't control, yes, a little bit here, you're putting aside the cash. Maybe every year you do something a little bit bigger to expand it slowly but surely. Whereas if you have maybe a more extreme situation, you might want to just throw it all against the wall, say, I'm going, like you said, all in, and just saying, hell or high water, I'm going to make this work. But I think if you're doing well and you're in a good place financially, there is no shame in doing a bit of a safer play, especially like you said, with family, with other considerations. Only buying what you can afford, essentially, just like on a personal budget, is a very easy way to keep your business growing steadily and healthily without having to take on the extra stress and risk of rapid growth and expansion.
Yeah. And I mean, I what I'm hearing there is, like, again, it depends on your situation. It depends on your risk tolerance. I've got some people in the comments saying, yes, you should go all in. I think there's something really beautiful about going all in too. I've had moments in my life where I've kind of taken those big all in moments. And I remember the first startup that I had that really took off and became something successful. There was this moment where we had this huge contract on the line, and this was like 8-9 months into the business, and I had put maybe a couple $1,000s in by that point, and we were just trying to figure it out, find the business model. And all of a sudden this huge contract came up, and we were going to have to front some major expenses for the beginning of the business to really get this contract underway and make it happen. And I had to come out of pocket about another $8,000. And at the time, that was an extreme amount of money for me. It was about, I was going to be leveraging about half the money that I had to my name. And so, I decided to do it because the business was on the line, and I saw this route to make it work. And for me, it left a couple $1,000, a few $1,000 to the side for emergencies and for things that could come up. But I knew that I had to go kind of all in that moment. And I knew that was also around the time that I decided to go full time with that business. And it ended up working out well. We ended up getting that contract and making a lot of money from it. Most of it got embezzled by a partner at the time, and we were in a rough spot there. I had got my return back out of the business before that happened, luckily, so I didn't end up out of pocket with that. But we ended up having to rebuild. But I'll tell you, I learned so much from that whole experience, and the going all in. I feel like I got this rapid education in business from just being in that position. But I don't know that that's for everyone. I was also, at the time, I was 24 years old, maybe even a little bit younger than that. And I had the flexibility to be able to go all in, and not have people depending on me that, had ramifications for it. I was also young and inexperienced. So, you could make the argument that the risk is higher if you're young and inexperienced, because, well, you just don't know what you don't know yet, and you don't know if you're going to be able to make it work. But that's kind of how I've learned from going all in. I think going all in can be very valuable because you've got to make it work. But the next thing that we wanted to talk about was your business as an investment vehicle. So this is really, as we've gotten past this, do you go all in or do you kind of slow play it? Now you're an established business owner. So for those of you who are watching, maybe you have a business already and you've already done the stage of like, you either went all in or you slow played it and got into the business. This is like treating your business as an investment vehicle. And the biggest thing that comes to mind, the biggest concept I think of when I hear this is I think about this all the time. Your business can really only be in growth mode or cash flow distribution mode. You can't really have both going on at the same time unless you have a big influx of capital that comes into the business, which is the next thing that we're going to talk about. But you kind of have to choose one. You kind of either have to be in that growth mode and reinvesting into the business, or you have to be in cash collecting mode. And so when I think about your business as an investment vehicle, you put some money in, you get the business to a spot of maturity. Maybe it's grown to the level where it can bring cash flow that makes you happy and covers your expenses and gives you a good, reasonable living. Then it kind of is an investment vehicle. It's getting you a return on your money every year. But it might take a while to get that investment as you're in that growth mode and you're not taking distributions off the table.
This is something we deal with all the time is people who come and they're wanting to sell their business because their business was their retirement plan. And half the time it's in shambles. It's not sellable. They're not going to get anywhere near what they want for it. And it's one of those things where if it was really a tangible asset that you knew and you cared about, treating it like a piggy bank and kind of just using it for whatever you need it for is like, it's like taking your 401k or an investment account and leveraging it to pull out personal loans for doing whatever you want. Sorry, this one just annoys me because I see it so often. And a great example of somebody who teaches people how to do this on a scale for specific industries is Patrick Lang. He's on YouTube, great guy, constantly has content about people who come to him to sell for their HVAC businesses, which, by the way, very profitable, very good businesses, but they're completely unsellable or they're going to get pennies on the dollar because it was not structured right. So when you're looking at it, like if you really think your business is going to be an investment vehicle, treat it as such. Make sure your debts are paid. Make sure your systems are in place. Make sure you have the right people doing the right jobs and you're not in the nitty gritty of it. When it comes down to it, you have to treat this like it is going to be some sort of like it's a long-term hold. Treat it with respect, treat it with decency, and don't use it as play money. And again, this comes back to the all in or safety. The safety likely is going to be a bit easier to sell down the road. If you're being a little safer with it, you might not get the return but that you wanted initially, but you'll get a good return. The guy that goes all in, well, he's 50-50. Either it crashes and burns or he's going to make exponentially more money on his sale because he took a chance and he rocketed it to the moon. So when you're treating your business like an investment, how do you want to play it? Do you want to spin the wheel with the kind of fast and loose strategy, or you're going to build a little bit safer and try to play it for the multiples later on down the road? So it also it depends on your business horizon and realistically what industry you're in to a degree. But we have other videos about industries, multiples, and kind of how you can grow those and what they tend to return.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it beautifully there. Like you have to kind of like treat it as something that's bringing you return. And I think so many people get caught up in just working full time in their business and spending all their time in it. And they forget that the whole point is to build it as an investment vehicle. So I guess the biggest point I want to leave everyone with, just personal opinion here, is I think that when you're building your business, you should build it with the idea that it's an investment instrument. You're building it so that it can bring you increasingly passive amounts of return. But you might go through stages in your life where you decide, hey, I want to put a lot of active effort into this. And business is a wonderful thing because you can build it in a way where if you decide you want to work 16 hours a day for a couple of years and just put all that time, or maybe years and years, and you're happy to spend that time and you want to spend that time, you can make an incredible return on your time and on your money. But you can also set it up to where you don't have to spend a lot of time in your business and it still makes a return. Maybe not as much as when you were actively working in it, but it's pretty incredible that you can kind of design that investment vehicle on your own and set it up to work the way that you want to. And I think it's one of the things that attracts me to business the most. So in this concept, or in this conversation of having a mature business that's moving forward and continuing to grow, I think the next question for us to talk about is, if you're trying to make this big leap forward in your business, do you go with debt or equity raising? I think it's important first to talk about the difference between the two.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, this is the one where I think a lot of people, set their own hair on fire. Yeah, obviously debt is going on getting a loan, and that's a lot of hoops. And we talk about that in our experiences personally with both SBA and traditional banking. It's a little bit slower, it's a little bit more meticulous, and sometimes it's worth it, and sometimes you're just out a couple $100 to somebody who did nothing. But there's a number of ways to get loans with a business, assuming the business has, something for them to collateralize. Equity is when you just go to people and you're just saying, hey, person A, B, or C, I have a business. I'm looking for this much. How much can you give, or how much do you want to pay into this? And I say how much because odds are, unless you have really cool, rich friends, you're probably going to have to collect from a few people depending on the amount of money. And like we've alluded to this in the past, but you really want to stay away from asking family for loans unless you somehow have the secret sauce. You're going to pay them back. But also, just in that vein, you want to look at the hand that's giving you the money before you look at the amount of money. Both are important, but the hand is going to be connected to the person, and that's the person that's going to be basically getting into bed with you for X amount of time. And we both have had experiences with people that we've been in business with where they say one thing and they give you what you want, and then 2 months in, they're a completely different person, and they're asking for loans. They need the money back. They're telling you how to run the business, and they don't have a share, but then they keep throwing it in your face that they loaned you money, and you're trying to explain it wasn't a loan, it was equity. You have to be careful in both regards. You get a loan and you can't cover the interest, at least you're underwater. You give somebody else a piece of the thing and they end up being a complete nut job. Well, now you got this guy, you got to buy him back out for his original amount, if not more, depending on the business. So it's a very, I don't want to say a slippery slope, but it's a very fine line, I guess, because you could teeter either way and there's dangers to both. So I'm not sure if I have a preference. I tend to lean more towards the banks because at least the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. But there are certain people in my life that I would happily give money to and take money from because of our longstanding relationship and understanding and the amount of work we've done together.
I think there's also a couple different ways to do both of these. On the debt side, you could be getting debt from a traditional source like a bank or lending institution of some kind, or you could be getting it from like a hard money lender of some kind, or just some private lender. And my question, if it was someone who's like a private lender or something, I would be wondering, okay, what does this person bring to the table and how do they contribute to the growth of the business? Do they bring something that can help the business grow and get that return? Because if not, then you could put yourself in a little bit of a difficult situation, especially with the terms that usually come with that type of lending. And I would think about the same thing on the equity side. If you're bringing in equity, how smart is that money? Who, like Ryan said, the hand that's giving you the money is attached to a person. What's that person going to help bring to the business? How do they contribute and help the business grow? And what does that do for the business? I think these are the things that you need to think about and ask yourself about. I think if you're an established business and you're really not looking to bring extra ideas and thoughts and strategy to the table, then maybe debt is the clear way to go. If you don't have, everything that you need at the table already, if you want more strategy, more help, you want that kind of smart money, then it could make a lot of sense to bring in the equity investment. Especially equity, you got, think about the terms of it. If you bring in debt, you've got payments on it right away. You might bring in equity where you're deferring payments on the equity of the dividends for a year or two. And in private equity deals, many times they bring in equity that is deferred for multiple years and has a lockup period so that they're able to reinvest the cash flow in the business and really accelerate it more quickly and quickly acquire businesses. So there's these different kind of like strategies that go into it too. I think it really depends a lot on what your strategy is. If you just want to expand your business a little bit faster, then debt might be the thing. If you're making a big move like an acquisition, a partial acquisition, you're wanting to bring more strategy to the table and make this big leap forward, then I think the equity route starts to make a little bit more sense.
It's going to be something that you will come up against, and a lot of times people will look to accept money from the closest source or the quickest source, which is not necessarily the best source. I think the situation that I always hear about is people saying that, oh, I'll just be a silent investor. Oh, they're a back investor. They don't actually have any opinions. They just want the money to grow. I would say that you'd have a better chance of seeing a pig fly than having a truly silent investor, because everybody's got an opinion. And at some point, they're going to want to give you an opinion, and you may or may not want that. You may have just been needing it to buy an asset that you just need to expand your business. And if they decide that they think they know how to run your business better than you and you weren't prepared for that, well, now you have somebody who you now owe money to and a piece of your business to that is giving you all sorts of unsolicited advice and opinions that maybe you could have just done without if you'd gone more traditional routes. So you really got to pick where your tolerance lies in regards to risk and what you're willing to take on into your personal life. Because if they have your cell phone, which they probably will, the bank's not going to text you at 9 o'clock at night with a 3-paragraph reasoning of why you should change the company colors to X, Y, and Z. Silent investor might, because, hey, they own part of this company now too. So something to always keep in mind.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing with all three of these things that we've talked about is, what is your personal situation? I see like all the time people just prescribing these things online and prescribing these solutions. I think many times the nuance that's lost there is what makes sense for you as a person in your individual situation, given your goals and what you're trying to do. And I think that's the biggest thing that you should be thinking about, like when it comes to all this stuff. What's your strategy? If you don't have one yet, well, you better make a strategy. And which part of all of this actually suits your strategy? But that would be my answer, at least.
Find all the reasons you shouldn't do something first. Have everybody who will tell you you're wrong and you shouldn't do it to tell you those things. And if after all of that you still want to go through with it, then you have your answer. But if at any point you hear something, you go, that's a good idea, or that's a fair point, I didn't think about that, then you realize it's probably not the right mode for you. So that's how I would approach it.
With that being said, we do this every Tuesday night, right around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know what questions you have for our next episode. Let us know what topics we should cover. And if you have thoughts, maybe you're watching this and you're a business owner, or you're trying to get into being a business owner and you have thoughts on how much you should be investing in your business, put them in the comments. We want to hear them. Let them rip, and we want to hear what your thoughts are and how you would approach it. Until next time, we'll see you.